Check 1, 2. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another live stream. It's Wednesday. I try to do these every single Wednesday, so if you want to continue watching, Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time is what's going on. So this is episode 15 of the Video Production Helpline, so I'm going to be getting to your questions here momentarily. Let me know if I look a little red. I know the background's kind of reddish-orange, but there's an update to the software I use, and it looks a little different to me, but maybe it's nothing. Who knows? A couple bits of business before we dive into questions and chatting about anything you guys want to talk about, and that is number one. After this stream, I'm headed over to this stream at the C47, so if you want to talk about our favorite gear or your favorite gear, that's what we're covering over there. So favorite gear of the year. And then another thing I thought would be kind of fun to do each week as we do this show is to talk about other creators, specifically channels that are smaller, or maybe not even smaller, but just ones that I'm discovering. Because here's the thing: when I got started, I just started randomly putting videos up, and there weren't a lot of people talking about, budget-friendly filmmaking equipment, things like that. These days, however, it is nuts out there. There are so many channels and a lot of great ones. So one I just came across today is Fellow Filmmaker. I believe the gal running this, can't believe I'm saying that, gal, this young lady. I feel like such an old man now. It's unbelievable. Anyway, Heather has lots of great videos, and if you're into lighting specifically, it looks like she's got a lot there, a lot of budget-friendly lights, so that would be a good channel to check out. So that's Fellow Filmmaker on YouTube. So there you go. Maybe we'll do this every week. Maybe we'll let me know what channels you think should be featured. There's a lot of great ones out there, and I know someone had mentioned Fellow Filmmaker in the comment of one of my videos in the past, so good to finally check the channel out. So let's get into questions, and we've got a lot here. First and foremost, thank you all for hanging out. We've got Volker, Wooter, good to see you again, Wooter, NFFI, Gabriel, Karma, Linder, and Bug Bob's Wild World. I love that name. Love it. As well as others. So welcome, people from all over the world. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I saw a question here earlier from Wooter. Here it is. First question today, and it's about light modifiers. I have a really shallow setup. Recommendations on softboxes or bouncing light to my face while being so close to the wall. That's a tricky one. So you have two options, in my opinion. You can bounce off the wall, like you just mentioned. The tricky thing is, let's say I've got a wall right here. I need to bounce light off of that, which means I need to have a light somewhere that's going to hit it, and most likely it's going to hit you, or this way, I suppose. It's going to hit you as it hits the wall. So your better option might be LED mats, because they're going to give you a large source before you even modify them. Then, a couple inches in front of that, you could add some diffusion. So I've talked about LED mats a lot on the channel, and hopefully there'll be more. There's not a lot of brands making them, but that would be what I'd go with. Try to get like a 24 by 24 inch LED mat, something like that ought to do the trick. So good question. What else do we have here? I'm going to scroll down because I know I'm behind as usual. Welcome, Bill. Good to have you here, man. Bat, good to see you. Good to see you. Sweet, sweet, sweet. People talk about where they're from. I better scroll down here. Holy smokes, El Jefe. You need to chill out, my dude. I cannot get C-Log 3 without so much noise. Well, let's talk about it on the next stream with Jem Schofield, which I'll put in the chat. I forgot to do that because he is way more of a Canon guy. But, I mean, if you haven't already, try overexposing. Or exposing to the right, as they say. All right. Hide this because it's giving me too much fill, and I'm nerdy about that kind of stuff. So I'm jumping down to the bottom here. Fellow filmmaker, hey, that's awesome. Thanks for the shout out, Caleb. Wasn't expecting to hear my name when I jumped on. Nice. Well, welcome. And great channel. I've heard you mention in the past, so it's cool to finally check out your channel today. So what else do we have, ladies and gentlemen? Nice big panel. Normally, like normally for ceilings, I might just put a diffuser in front of it. Yeah, go for it. Give it a shot. All right. Ooh, here we go. How are you liking the Sirui anamorphic lenses? Whoops, that's my own message. Sorry about that. There we go. I think they're great. I'm really excited about the new ones they're doing, the full frame anamorphic lenses. You can check out when you're talking about the crop sensor lenses, there's a couple that are great. I would say the 35 and 75, really nice. 24 is good too. It's just, you know, at that wide, you're not going to get a lot of love when it comes to like shallow depth of field and really interesting round bokeh, but you will get flare cities. If you're into that, go for it. The 50, I'm not wild about. The 50 is weird. It's got a blue cast. But as it stands, those are good lenses. So I'm really curious to watch Sirui and other manufacturers, like what's the other one? Great Joy, to see what they do. So it's good stuff. Let's see. Got my first piece of filmmaking gear, Zoom H1N. So stoked. Nice. Zoom H1N, man. Legendary stuff. All right. From FAMU Media. I'm terrible. Really bad with English and grammar. All right. Hi, man. Lighting dilemma. I'm after a Godox VL150 for a single setup YouTube set. Love the look of it in the small form factor, minimal fan noise, but I've been offered a VL300 for 300 pounds. What do I do? VL300. That's the larger one, right? So if you're just looking for a light, let's see, I would say go for a light that's going to more appropriately match what output you're going to need. So for instance, I'm a little overexposed, I think today, but I'm using a 120D, the original version for this setup. It's kind of overkill. What am I? I'm set 26% for this light output. I would go with a smaller light. And what's interesting, a lot of people don't talk about, is when you have a light, specifically LEDs. This is really an LED thing, not other technologies like tungsten and whatnot. And if you have that light really low when it comes to the dimmer, usually you're going to have poor color rendition. And you can test this, right? If you've got some kind of way to measure CRI, set your light to 1%, read it, set it to 100%, read it again. I'll almost guarantee you 99% of the time, 100% is going to be much better. So if you're buying like a monstrous light for a setup like this, which is like, you know, not that wide, you know, it's probably wasted, especially if you're going to use it just for that. If you're going to use it for other stuff, great, go for it. That said, I'm also not as familiar with those lights. I haven't done a comparison with them. I know what Gerald did a whole thing on that, so you could ask him. But yeah, VL150, I would try to get something a little more appropriate for the type of lighting you're going to be doing. Right, what do we have now? Let's see. Hey, Caleb, does the A1 also have the same magenta patches that the A7 III, A7S have in log? My guess, I don't own one, so I can't tell you. But my guess is in 10-bit, you're good on that camera, just like you would be on the A7S III, or mostly good compared to Panasonic. So yeah, I would say it's going to be similar to the A7S III when it comes to your log profiles, 10-bit versus 8-bit, and all of that stuff. I still think Panasonic's better with 10-bit. It's just so much cleaner when it comes to color and noise and whatnot. Okay, what do we got? Good question. Ben's Watch Club. Nice. I'm going to check out your channel. Recommendations for a small but smooth product turntable. Cheap eBay ones are too lurchy for me. or for my work. Also, let me know if you want to watch. Woo! Nice. I'll have to check out your channel, Watch Club, Ben's Watch Club. That's a good question. A buddy of mine would know. You can get commercial turntables or make your own. So for watches, so smaller stuff. Yeah, I would get something like, so you're probably thinking like a smaller turntable. You might want to look at something a little more beefy. You know, you're never going to maybe overweight it, or you're not going to need its, spec when it comes to being able to hold something really heavy. But the larger turntables are going to have better components, better belts. I think belt driven is probably a better option as opposed to direct drive. So I don't know one off the top of my head, but I'd have to do some research on that. But a friend of mine has worked with giant ones, like multiple people standing on it for heavy duty equipment and things. So he would know. So shoot me an email, DSLRvideoshooter.com/contact, and maybe I'll reach out to my friend and see what he has to say. And everyone should check out the Watch Club, Ben's Watch Club. Currently using the 120D. Oh, okay, so you're looking for more output than the 120D? There you go. Let's see. Thoughts on the GH6? I don't have any because I've not seen anything. I don't think there's really that many rumors out, are there? But can't wait to figure out what's going on. What physical interface are you using to run your live stream? So I am using an Atem Mini Pro for all of the video and audio. So this microphone is run into a DBX 286S. All of that is in the description. There's a link to this whole setup, so you can check that out in depth, Tyler. But yeah, that's the setup. Microphone into that preamp, and then that goes into the Atem Mini, and that goes to my MacBook. And then the software I use, I have also included in the description, Ecamm Live. So that's what I use for that. Does the A7 IV's dual native ISO help with showing peaking indicators in low light? I don't know because I haven't gotten mine yet. I pre-ordered it as quickly as I could, but still nothing. So hopefully those ship before too long. What lights will work for commercials? That is a broad question, my friend. Let me know what kind of commercials you're shooting. Any recommendations for portable but solid light stands? That's a great question, Jan. So an older video of mine, let me see if I can find it real quick. I did a video when I got this space that I'm in now, and I did a video on all the stands I used. And in that video, there's a couple that I think would work well. So let me see. Is it under grip gear? This looks about right. Yep. Is that just lights or is that grip gear too? Here we go. Okay, so I'm dropping this in the chat. In that video, I talk about all the stands I use. There's the kind that like fold on themselves, so they get really compact, but they don't hold as much weight. And then there's a model that I really dig, and it has a removable spigot, really strong. That's my like everyday driver stand, if you will. For, you know, you're not gonna be able to put giant lights on it, but yeah, that's what I would recommend. So good question. Check that video out. The title of the video is Video Lights and Grip Gear for the New Studio, and it was in 2018. All right. So I lost my spot here. Recommendations for variable ND filter for S-Log2 shooting indoors with the window, light, and wide aperture. Will a 2 to 5 stop filter do? Thank you. Oh, that's a tough question, Sarah. It depends on so many exposure variables. I feel like most variable NDs aren't good for indoors unless you are going to be cranking your ISO up. So I don't know what camera you're using, but I actually prefer, over a couple years ago, I just stopped using variable NDs. There's too many cons to them. I know they're convenient, but image-wise, you can run into some issues, and they always just seem too dark. So I went out and just got good old school ND filters. Then you can get certain strengths. So that might be the route I would take. And you can stack them, of course, if you need to. So, yeah. 2 2 to 5 stop. I feel like that might be a little overkill. Again, it depends. Definitely depends on your room, how much light is coming in. But I feel like that's going to be a little too dark for you if I had to guess without, you know, having more information. And we have got a super chat, $5 from Mohammed. What does he say? Hey, Caleb, I'm a rookie regarding videos. What is a solid starter camera for videos? I want to make content for LinkedIn and YouTube. All right, let's see. I would probably recommend going with Sony. I don't know what your budget is, so if you want to hit me with that, that would be helpful. It's kind of rough in budget land, but if you're just getting started, a Canon DSLR is probably, or mirrorless camera, is going to be very simple. The image is going to look good, so I'd probably start there. Yes, I would say Canon. That's probably my recommendation. An EOS R. This camera I'm using right now is the wow, Caleb, the RP, the Canon RP. It's great full frame camera, around $1,000, I think, maybe $800 used. I haven't checked in a while, but that's probably a good option. This lens too, 35 millimeter f1.4, and all that's in the description, I believe. So that would work out for a setup kind of like this, you know, good solid starter kit. So thank you for the donation and the question. And if you have more information about your budget, let me know. All right. Any help stepping up my audio game? Tips, equipment, YouTube channels. Easy YouTube channel recommendation, Curtis Judd. Love that guy. He's fantastic, so you can check out his channel. And then when it comes to equipment, it depends on your setup. I would say the number one thing to get your audio better is to get your microphone as close as possible. That'll allow you to keep your levels lower, and that's going to help with, you know, background noises, sounds, and acoustic treatment. I've talked about both of those on the channel a lot, so having sound panels, sound blankets. I would take a terrible microphone in a great treated space over a super nice microphone in a bad space. So those are two things. Get your microphone close. Doesn't matter what mic it is. Get a $40 little shotgun microphone or something, and then treat your space for sure. Good question. Caleb, how do you shine your white key light on you and not let it affect the background color like you have in your setup now? Good question. Distance and control. So this light is angled. It's not perfect because I'm bald, so there's like all this action up here. But this light is about, you know, 3/4 over to my left, and then about a 45-degree angle shining down. So that's keeping most of the light going right here. That looks awful. There's no way to do that. So the light isn't shining on the background. It's more pointed at me. I am what? 8 feet from the background, and then that background light is, you know, controlled. It has barn doors, so that's the deal. If I was right against that wall, it'd be a lot more difficult to do this setup. But that's what you want to do, is point your lights. In your picture here, whoops, I lost the comment. You're not wearing glasses, so if you're filming yourself, you're gonna be great for a grid. So you could put a grid on your light. That's gonna really give some directionality to your light and keep it from spilling. I can't do that because if I go like this, you right now see kind of a nice, it's not nice, but it's as good as it gets when it comes to eyeglass reflection. If there's a grid on here, you'd see all those lines and it'd be really annoying. So hopefully that answers your question. Tired eyes. I'm a music producer and I work out of a small 10x10 studio. I'm surrounded by keyboards on all 3 walls. I'd like to stream, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to light myself. If you can, what's your ceiling situation? Do you have white ceilings? Can you bounce light off of that ceiling to kind of give an ambient to the room? This light I'm using right now is actually bounced off the ceiling, and you can see it's filling in the room. And then add a little bit of light kind of lower, because the ceiling light's pretty rough, right? Because it makes shadows in the eyes. Bring another light down, and that setup is probably what to go with. Hit the ceiling with light to fill the room, key light of some kind, and then if you want, little pops of light on the background, which is all super easy to do these days because there's a billion of budget-friendly options out there. Okay, I'm going to be jumping down here, folks, because I am behind. This is just how things go down, and there he is, Alex Miner, $5 donation, your weekly bribe. Dude, Thank you, sir. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Great video, by the way, on your book, Profit First. Or not your book, but the book, Profit First book. Man, that book's fantastic. If you get anything out of the stream, go read or listen to Profit First. Completely changed my business, and Alex's too. He did a video on it. Okay, why Ecamm over something like OBS? Great question, Tyler. I used to use OBS, and I'm totally fine going that route. It is a great free option. Little bugs, Ecamm is super, super clean, and doing things like this, adding your comment just by clicking on your name here in the chat. I can star comments. I can bring in multiple guests. No third-party anything is required. So, and they're constantly developing it. It is Mac only, or iOS, Mac OS only. So there is that. Let me take a sip of coffee, but good question. Gabriel, I want to get a GH5 secondhand. Are there any other cameras, newer, better quality? GH5 is still a great camera. GH5S is going to be slightly better when it comes to low light and I think color, slightly wider image. For that price, if you're getting a used one, I think that's probably image quality wise your best bet. Maybe a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, but that's a whole other thing, and you might not want to go down that road. So yeah, what do you guys think? Any other recommendations? I think for the money, that 10-bit 4K camera is still probably the best option out there. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. So yeah, I don't think you'll be sad about that decision at all. All right, what do we got here? Thinking of mounting a light to the ceiling and maybe the Aperture 60D. Any ideas? Yeah, you could totally do that. If you have drop ceilings or something, that's super easy, or you could mount. There's tons of mounts on Amazon and whatnot where you can add things to your ceiling. Aperture 60D would be plenty bright for setups like this. Yeah, 100%. If you want to add a little color, you can do the X. The 60D I like because of the output, but again, as I showed in my review, you know, you could be sitting at 35% and still get plenty of light. So, is there a marginal difference in the codecs A7S, FX3? Not really. They're pretty much identical. But back to your question, which one do you recommend that gives me the balance of quality and storage space? They're both exactly the same. So if you're talking about the A7S3 versus the FX3, doesn't matter. One's more expensive than the other. One has an EVF, the other doesn't. One comes with an XLR handle, the other doesn't. So if you don't care or don't know, go with the A7S3. And then if you like what the FX3 does for you form factor wise, go with that one. What are the release dates for the new aperture lights you just posted a video of? I don't know, actually. I believe, well, it depends, right? It's when things arrive. So it's just everything's out of stock. It's brutal out there. I mean, I feel really bad for people who jumped into creating a business involving manufacturing. I mean, it's rough right now. Hey, Caleb, love when you do your setups with phones like an iPhone. Becoming so good. Have you ever thought of doing a phone setup for people starting out? I probably should. Phones just kind of bore me, but it is a completely viable tool, especially today. Phones are ridiculous. So I should. Thank you for the suggestion there. Savage Coffee Tea. Recommendations for things to account for Recommendations for things to account for in custom DIY ceiling-mounted systems for lights, mics, and cameras. Oh yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can go. You want to make sure it's safe, number one. I would say unless you can come up with a semi-permanent option, I would avoid ceiling setups because the second you put the final screw into your setup and it's done, you're going to want to change something. So I've learned that avoiding that is preferred. One hack I've wanted to do for a long time but never have is, let's say you're in a small bedroom space, put a piece of trim all the way around the room at the same height, take a 2x4 and run 2x4s all the way around about a foot down from the ceiling. Then you can take other 2x4s or metal bars and run them across, and you can slide them around on those 2x4s. That will give you some flexibility. You can move things around. But if you bolt something to the ceiling and you end up wanting to move it 5 feet, it's tricky. Or if you have a ton of money, just build a grid, and you can look up grids on, YouTube and find people building grids out of speed rail, and that gives you a lot of flexibility. But yeah, on a budget, it's tricky if you want to end up moving things. Yeah. C stands for Godok's newer, yada yada, a bit shorter but $50 cheaper. I haven't played with those. I don't really like those Amazon C stands. They're not really C stands. I would recommend spending a little more and getting something like an impact stand, something that's solid, steel. But that said, I can't say I've tried them all, so I should maybe do a showdown. It wouldn't get a lot of views, but I love that kind of stuff, buying the cheapest C stands on Amazon and whatnot. So I can't vouch for any of those. But, to hold a light and a softbox, sure, they'll do just fine. If you just want a heavy-duty stand, I really like, and again, I'm not sponsored by them. I've just purchased and tried a lot of stands and found that there's an impact stand. It's like $50, $54. It goes to 10 or 12 feet, 13 feet, I think, actually, and it holds a lot of weight. So that's a fantastic option. Impact heavy-duty air cushion stand. If you search for that on B&H or Amazon, you'll find it. All right, Kevin. Hey, Caleb. Do you know of a solution for a wireless lav mic which can be easily integrated with a camera that has more than 2 channels? So the problem with going more than, that's a great question. There are options out there. Actually, someone just sent me an email with one that does 4 channels from what's that brand? Comica, I think. But it's 4 mics going to 1 receiver. The problem with that is if you're just going into the camera, you only have 2 channels. So if you add a third, it can work, but now you're mixing or baking in 2 channels into 1 channel, if that makes sense. So 3 microphones, your camera's only going to record 2 channels, left and right. So 2 of those got to go together, and you can't adjust those levels in post. So in that case, going with an external recorder is a better option. You can record on that external recorder and then output that to the camera. Then you can bake it in. So that way, let's say somebody's just obnoxiously loud in post, you can still fix it by using your recording on the external recorder. But if you don't need to, you're good to go. So that's probably what I would recommend. When it comes to wireless systems that do that, there's not a ton in that kind of middle of the road. You can definitely find some like Wireless Go knockoff brands that can do that for you. So just search for like 4X wireless kit on Amazon. You'll find several options. What is your opinion on the Samyang, and do you think is a perfect lens for the GH5? They're all right. If you're going with that kind of budget, I would prefer to go vintage personally, but yeah, their lenses work great. What are your best practices for avoiding shadows shadows of yourself in your background? Yeah, so all those things you just mentioned, light placement, height, angle, type of light, etc. If you have a softer light, it's going to smudge it out. You might not even notice. If you angle it correctly, just like imagine a shadow, right? So don't put yourself in between the light and the background. A hack that I use so much, and this, what I'm about to tell you, it solves so many lighting problems. Just take your light, and instead of going like this or this, just bring it around, right? Now the light is passing you, hitting a different wall, and then you bring in fill, something that's white and big, and bring it over here, and you're good. So everything's lighting you up, and nothing's hitting the background. That solves so many issues. Glasses, bald people, hats. Not maybe this light because I have it really high, but yeah, bring it around and fill. Bring the light around and fill. That's a good question, Chris. Thank you. Super chat from Alex, $5. He says, do you feel the new Amaran 60D competes with Aputure's LS60X output-wise? I don't know. Oh, just got the Lightstorm and feeling buyer's remorse. So I haven't used the Aputure LS60X because I personally, for myself, didn't think it was something I needed or would use to its full potential. It's a great light. It's a hardcore light. You can take that thing, knock it around at weddings, and it's going to do great. It's a great light. But for me, everything's babied in here. So, well, for the most part, some things get beat up pretty hardcore. But when it comes to lights, usually for my studio setup, they sit on a stand and they're protected and sandbagged off and all that. So yeah, the 60D might. I haven't tested that myself, so I can't confirm. But you know, if it's not going to hold up when it comes to it's not going to hold heavy things, and if it gets dropped, it's going to be a bad day. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for the donation, Alex. Okay, you're a big fan of the Tamron 28 to 75. There are many alternatives in that price range. I haven't tried any of those that you're talking about. So the Samyang I pre-ordered and then canceled it because I got scared. But it looks pretty interesting. The Sigma, also an option, a little more expensive. I like the Tamron. The thing that Tamron has is size, because it has a slightly longer range. So instead of 24 to 70, it's 28 to 75. It's smaller, and that is amazing when you're running around. Not having a monstrous setup is really good. So that's why I like it. But I'm not saying it's better. But that was, and when it first came out, what was it, $800 or less? Was it $600? That doesn't feel right, but it was very affordable. Have you ever used a folding slider before? I have not. So I can't tell you what I think about that, Matt. Okay, from Uganda, learned so much. Thank you. Gospel song cover. Appreciate those. The kind words. Where the hell is Ravel? $5 donation. I'm trying to set up a G95 for MPF battery, but it keeps rejecting the dummy battery, and it says the battery cannot be used. So there's two reasons that's happening. Something funky's going on with the circuitry inside of the battery, the dummy battery, or the voltage is wrong. So it's too high or too low. And a lot of cameras, people don't know this, but a lot of cameras have, or they should, most of them do, have protection circuitry. So if it reads, yikes, we're not getting enough voltage or we're getting too much, it'll shut it off. So maybe try a different, if you have a voltage meter, check the battery. Maybe it's too low for operation. Or try another dummy battery. There's so many, and the brands change constantly, so I know it's really tricky to stay on top of. But thank you for the donation. If I had to guess, it's going to be the dummy battery's the issue. And when in doubt, unplug everything and plug it all back in. You'd be amazed how many times that works. Is ISO 800 too much for N-Log ProRes? It depends on what camera you're using and what, native ISO is. Do some tests and all that stuff. Which is better than the EOS R6 for $3,500? I mean, I like the A7S III. That's my take, but anyone else can jump in with their recommendations. Thank you so much for the kind words, Volker. Appreciate it. Thanks for the great A7S III tutorials and great correction LUTs. Have you tried using auto white balance with the lock button instead of capturing custom white balance? Any thoughts, pros and cons? That's a great question. I don't know. I've not tested those against each other. When you do the lock on the auto, does it tell you what you're getting? Because that's one thing I love about the custom is it'll give you a reading of what it's seeing, and then you can make changes. Like if you're like, no, you're way off, you're way out of line, camera, you can bring it back a little bit. Great question, Evan. Thank you for the kind words. Let's see. What are some good guidelines for when to work for free, or how much you should charge clients? Should I ever base it on cost of my gear? Never. Well, you should bill people for what the job requires. That's what I believe. So if it requires a grip truck and a DP and a whole crew, they should be billed for that. If the shot that they are dreaming of and really want requires 6 M18s, they should be billed for that. So I wouldn't, there's kind of like this trend of people putting their gear on their website, which I don't think, your work should be on your website, and whatever gear you use is the gear you use. So I wouldn't say, okay, I've got all of this gear, this is what I'm going to charge people. I would charge them for that gear when you use it, though. So you should always be charging for equipment because your equipment isn't expendable at the end of the day. Everything wears down, batteries die eventually, stuff gets beat up, things need upgraded. So you should be billing for equipment being used, but I wouldn't say I own, 3 red Monstros, therefore I magically get to charge more. I'm not saying that's what you think or anything, but that's just an example, right? When it comes to working for free, it's going to depend, like if you, I don't think it's wrong to work for free. That's how I think most of us start out, especially when you want to take a different course. So let's say you've been doing corporate videos and interviews for, boringcompany.llc, and you're just kind of done with that and you want to go shoot action sports. Well, you're going to have to just go work for free in action sports for a while to kind of build a reputation, build a reel. I don't know why my glasses keep falling down. Probably need to clean them. But yeah, that's what I would say. Use your equipment, charge for your equipment. And there's a live stream I did on the channel with a friend of mine. We talked about this. I'll have to hunt it down. But if you look at like how much to charge for work or something like that, you'll find it. So great question on that one. And we're going to have to giddy up, folks. So I'm going to read this next one, and then we might jump down a little bit. What settings are you using on your Sony Alpha A6400 and A7 IV if you want to show off flashing beams at night? Flashlight beams at night. I don't know, man. I would say do some tests, but I shoot everything S-Log. Not so much on the A6400. You can check out a video I did about Sony Color where I talk about why. But do some tests. It depends. Is it a laser where it's going to overexpose, or is it really dim? Yeah, it's a good question. Super chat. $2. Budget. Oh, perfect. $1,500 or less. Great. Going back to your earlier question about budget or starter camera. Canon RP 35mm lens. I think that's probably what I would go with. Definitely the Canon RP. I think that's a great starter camera. Okay, holy smokes. We're going to jump through some super chats and then start at the bottom here. Camille, Glide Gear TMP 750 causes ghosting when I use it as a monitor for zoom. Brightness is not a problem. Solution. Thank you and keeping up. Ghosting. You know what? I wonder, actually, I think I know what it is. Look for light leaks. So I'm using that exact, I think, the Glide Gear. Yeah. I'm using that exact teleprompter right now. And if light is getting in, it's going to bounce things around. So make sure everything's sealed perfectly. Look for areas where light's getting in behind the glass. Maybe turn down the brightness of your monitor. See if that helps. But that's my guess, is somewhere light's bouncing around and creating a secondary reflection. Good question, and thank you for the donation. All right, I'm sorry, folks. Oh, my goodness, you guys are nuts. 100 EGP from Hamid. I have an A6400 and a 51.8 Sony lens. I have to put the camera far, far away. What is a better option lens-wise? Okay. So yes, that camera with that lens is going to be fairly cropped in. I'm full frame right now with a 35mm, and I can reach out and pretty much, if I wanted to, touch the lens if I lean forward a little bit. So that's kind of what you're looking at. Full frame, which is a larger sensor than that camera, and a wider lens. So for you, I'm going to say sell that lens or keep it, whatever, and go for the Sigma 16mm f1.4 or Sigma 30mm f1.4. Probably the 16 if you want a nice wide shot. Fantastic lens. You're definitely going to be happy with it. So great question, and thank you for the donation. Really appreciate it. Andrew, 25 euros. Nothing to ask, but to have watched you for ages. Keep up the momentum. Thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining, and fantastic beard. My goodness. Beautiful. Okay. Nice. Let's see here. Whew. You guys, with these super chats. LJ, so bad at reading things. Any upgrades to your rolling sound blanket? About to build mine from your video. Nope. I have not touched those things since I built them. Very happy with them. It's one of the few things I haven't modified, actually. So just be careful if you're going to move fast with it. That's a lot of weight to be swinging around. So be careful with it. Excuse me. But great question. Good. Thank you so much for the donation. And yeah, the sound blanket, man. Oh, if I can be remembered by anything, I hope it's those sound blankets. That's not true, but you know what I mean. Okay, a little lower here. I'm just gonna try to get through these super chats because you guys are getting out of control, and then we'll catch up. What do we got here? Hello, saw your latest light review from Aperture, the compact light. How does it stack up brightness-wise to Godok's cheaper lights? So if you're looking at the XL60, the original one, I would say, I haven't tested it, so I can't really tell you, but I would say it's on par, if not brighter. It's really bright. I mean, the Aperture 120D, it's 80% of that. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's what. So if at the beginning of the video, I show you what you can do with it. Yeah, so I would say you're good to go with that. Just be careful with what you're putting on the light. Don't put too much weight on it. And thank you so much for the donation. That's very kind of you, Sarah. All right, jumping down to the next one because we got to crack through these before the next stream. Camille again, Aperture Spotlight Mount, 36 degree. What is the minimum distance to the wall to speak of reasonable size effect? Yikes, I'm not sure off the top of my head. Aperture Spotlight Mount, 36 degree. What is the minimum distance? Check my review. I may have gone over that. But if you're in a smaller space, I think the 36 is the way to go. 100%. Unless you want tiny things really far away. 36%, if that answers your question. Thank you for the donation. And I think those specs are on their site or in my review, but it's been a while, so I can't recall. Oh, my goodness. So many questions I'm missing. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch through. I want to get these super chats, and then we're going to wrap up with some questions here at the end because I got to head out here, unfortunately, for the next stream, which we'll link to here in a second. A donation from Savage Coffee Tea. Thank you, sir. Are we caught up? Nope. Gee whiz. Dropping $30.99. Thanks for another great year of content. Thank you. Oh my goodness, that's right. We're almost done with the year. That's wild. So we've got 2 more streams left after this one. Maybe we'll have to do like a digital Christmas party at the end of the year here. Actually, it would be after Christmas, wouldn't it? I don't know. Oh my gosh, you guys are out of control. Tom, super chat. Pair character lifting some weights saying keep it up. Thank you so much, Tom. And another one from Josh. Wow, you guys are very generous tonight. And another one from Josh. Wow. Will you be doing a premium collapsible all-in-one cart video? I really want to get to it. Maybe next year, early next year, first quarter. But you can shoot me an email and I'll give you an idea of what that's all about there, Josh, if you can't wait. So thank you guys so much for all of those. Get out of here, Alex. What are you doing? And another one just because. Okay. Hold it. Stop with the super chats. We're going to wrap up here, and I'm going to drop a link to the next stream, which starts in 15 minutes. We're going to be talking about our favorite gear of 2021. So there's the link. I just put it in the chat, and here is the video. So that's over at the C47, and we're just going to be going through our favorite gear of the year, either things that came out in 2021 or just stuff that we bought and used and really enjoyed this year. You guys have been out of control, awesome with the questions, wonderful questions tonight. I'm so sorry for those who I did not get to you. Come back next week. We'll dive right back into another Helpline episode. For those who donated, thank you guys so much. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And if I don't catch you guys in the next several streams, have a Merry Christmas, have a wonderful holiday season, and a great new year. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys as we just keep going down the road that is life. So with that out of the way, have a lovely evening. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.